Hello, my friends, and welcome to 5 for the Future for this week, the week of July 15th. Let's jump into the 5 topics that stood out to me recently as signals of change that could impact your small business. I'll summarize the stories and share why you should care. Are you ready to get going? Here are our 5 topics for this week. Space buzzwords, cybersecurity, carbon removal, AI, jobs lost and gained, and DEI data. Let's begin with our story number 1, space buzzwords. Did you know that the International Space Station was launched into orbit in 1998? NASA is already pre-planning for its deorbit, because apparently that's a word. This won't take place until 2030, but NASA has already awarded the $843 million contract to SpaceX so they can start building the US deorbit vehicle, or USDV, that will bring the space station back to Earth safely, depositing it in the area of the Pacific Ocean called the Spacecraft Cemetery. And SpaceX is also busy testing its latest device, Mechazilla. The so-called chopsticks of Mechazilla, yes, Elon Musk did name it after Godzilla, will stabilize the full stack of Starship and Super Heavy booster prior to any launch to avoid strong winds from knocking them over. And then Mechazilla will also be able to catch returning rockets, helping to ensure that the rockets remain reusable. Meanwhile, Boeing's Starliner capsule remains attached to the International Space Station while some problem-solving takes place to determine how to ensure the ship's safe return to Earth with its 2 astronauts on board. So what does this all mean for you and your small business? These big space stories with giant companies and NASA money may not seem like they matter to small businesses until they do. For one thing, a Florida family just filed a lawsuit against NASA for damage to their house from falling space debris. Will this become a new line of business? Insurance against space debris? Repairs from space debris? On top of that, there appears to be plenty of public and private funding of space missions that some small businesses could benefit from getting involved. Check out NASA's Office of Small Business Programs to learn more about whether all this space news could lead to work for you and your small business. So what might the future look like? Imagine a future where there are multiple space stations in orbit, each with a different agenda, from science experiments to preparations for missions to the moon and to Mars, to zero-gravity manufacturing, and more. And that's before we even consider the space tourism market, which could reach $4 billion annually by 2030. Is there a market for your products or services in all these funds? It's time to start thinking about it. All right, let's move on to story number 2, cybersecurity. Did you try to buy or rent a car in the past month or so? If so, you were likely out of luck. The company that provides operational software to car dealers was hacked, making it nearly impossible to sell anything unless you had a manual process available as backup. This attack affected nearly 15,000 car dealerships in the US and Canada, and total dealership losses from this weeks-long outage could approach $1 billion. The hack is said to be the fault of a Russia-linked cybercriminal group. Meanwhile, in the UK, Russian hackers have stolen over 300 million medical records of National Health Service patient lab results. When the lab company refused to pay the ransom, the hackers posted some of the data in the public domain, including patient names, dates of birth, and test information. So what does this all mean for you and your small business? Okay, maybe you're not in the market for a new car, and you haven't had any blood work in the UK, so why should you care about these stories? Well, what if I told you that the hackers are now after your airline and hotel miles? That's a different story now, isn't it? Apparently, because the banks have been so successful at keeping businesses from being hacked, these successful cybercriminals are starting to expand their business, selling their hacking tools to newer, smaller criminals, even those with no coding skills. They even offer a tech support line to help aspiring new hackers. Talk about entrepreneurial. And of course, they're going after anything that's not a bank, because the world of credit card fraud is so challenging now. So they started going after your rewards programs. Hotel chains and airlines are not nearly as sophisticated. And most of us don't check our reward points often enough to discover if they're stolen until it's too late and someone has bought an airline ticket or redeemed your points as a gift card. So what might the future look like? Cybersecurity is not just an issue for big business or a concern about your air miles. It affects small businesses too, and regularly. Imagine a future where we all use a password manager to generate complex hacker-proof passwords for our accounts, and we only have to remember one password. Oh, wait, That's the present. The future is more likely to involve biometrics like your fingerprint or face scan, but eventually those will be hacked as well, I'm guessing. The final lesson, pay attention to online security and passwords now and in the future. All right, and with that, let's move on to our story number 3, carbon removal. The race is on to find new ways to lower our collective carbon footprint, and no idea is too crazy, apparently. Some recent startups are exploring ideas such as using electrochemical techniques to remove carbon from seawater, pouring sand mixed with minerals into the ocean to trigger a chemical reaction that drives carbon removal, capturing carbon dioxide and ejecting it into the ground and hoping it doesn't leak out, building solar-powered data centers in space where the carbon footprint is much smaller, and turning Brazilian farmland back into tropical forests to capture more carbon dioxide. And as somewhat related, a startup is producing a methane-reducing ingredient to add to the feed for dairy cattle, which can reduce methane emissions by 30%. So what does this all mean for you and your small business? Do you know what the carbon footprint for your business is? Have you explored ways to reduce it or promote any of your sustainability initiatives? For many large businesses, these issues matter. And if you want to work with them, it will need to matter to you too. First, to distinguish yourself from alternatives, but then ultimately perhaps to meet contract requirements. So what might the future look like? If you want to envision a future where climate change and sustainability are being seriously implemented, then let me introduce you to a new form of science fiction called cli-fi, or climate fiction. These novels take place in the not-too-distant future, creating either a dystopian or utopian future where we have either ignored or addressed climate change issues. Imagine cargo ships with sails, circular manufacturing plants using old products to make new ones, and personal air conditioning suits that make it possible to be outdoors when the temps are consistently over 115 degrees. Perhaps fiction will become reality. Moving on to story number 4, AI, jobs lost and gained. Some jobs are benefiting from the rapid growth of AI tools. Among them are jobs at giant consulting firms who are offering guidance to big business on how they can best adopt generative AI in their business. There is big money in AI consulting. About 40% of consulting giant McKinsey's work this year will be related to AI. While the super-rich MBA consultants are in good shape, their neighbors, the Wall Street finance bros, may find that investment banking can be managed quite capably by AI tools that don't expect a year-end bonus. But don't worry, there'll still be a need for the schmoozers who round up the clients for the AI tools, just not for the junior bankers and analysts. And speaking of schmoozers, AI is also coming for the jobs at venture capital firms. By handling portfolio management and company performance tracking, AI is predicted to cut VC analyst teams by as much as 50%. AI is poised to help out property managers by communicating with tenants 24/7, scheduling repair requests and troubleshooting issues, answering questions from prospective tenants, and reminding people to pay their rent. But it turns out that many AI chatbots need more human help than originally anticipated. AI tools being used internally at large firms are providing incorrect or inaccurate answers to basic questions and require someone to double-check their work. So what does this mean for you and your small business? Don't worry, my small business friends. There's no need to be all in with AI just yet. As a matter of fact, a recent survey shows that while B2B firms are dabbling in generative AI, few are really ready to commit to anything just yet. But high-growth firms are seeing benefits from AI, mainly in helping to automate documentation, automate marketing, and increase sales from recurring customers. So what might the future look like? I can picture a crazy, iterative, AI-driven future where all human communication is taken over by AI. My AI bot will contact the property management firm in my apartment about a lease question. Their AI bot will respond. My AI bot will schedule a meeting with your AI bot, and we'll both send our bots to the meeting to take notes for us. Students will use AI to write their term papers, and teachers will use AI to grade them. Where will this all get us? What does this mean for humans? Have you seen the movie Idiocracy? Just a thought. All right, and for our final story, story number 5, DEI data. A study from McKinsey from 2015 showed a clear link between profits and diversity in the C-suite, but it turns out that no one has been able to replicate those findings. That's not to say that there isn't huge value in diversity, but for those driven solely by profit, expect to see less interest in diversity in their teams. Between that and the current political environment, Supreme Court decision, many companies that once actively promoted their diversity programs are now dropping them, or at least not mentioning them so much, as compared to a peak in the year 2021. Many programs previously devoted to seeking out underrepresented groups are now open to all backgrounds, either due to lawsuits or a quiet decision to just drop DEI altogether. This very obvious shift is concerning minority college grads and job seekers who are in industries that are not traditionally very diverse, and now apparently aren't nearly so concerned about that fact. And perhaps you saw that farm supply retailer Tractor Supply Company has dropped its diversity and sustainability goals in a response to right-wing pressure just a year after being recognized for its inclusiveness in promoting gender equality and diversity. Situations like this are causing more companies to, quote, go underground with their DEI programs due to the political environment, even though the majority feel that DEI is an overall positive for their firms. So what does this all mean for you and your small business? Small businesses have the advantage of being able to remain somewhat apolitical and just do what works for their business. You want to grow your business and create a team of innovators? Look for prospective employees in diverse locations and seek out people who have different perspectives and backgrounds from you. So what might the future look like? One recent article predicts that DEI policies won't survive much longer, but claims the programs have been due for a change for a while. Why? Well, first, we're approaching a future where the non-white population will become the majority, which will start to be reflected in the workforce at the lower levels and then it's presumably rising up. Next, DEI has turned into a software-based training program at many companies, not a policy to seek out the most qualified candidate by expanding your search beyond your golf buddy's son. There is value in diversity, and that will still be the case in the future. It's just a matter of how we put it into policy. So stay tuned on that. And that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. And as always, follow me in these 5 topics for the future on 5 for the Future here on this YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me.